What's good? It's Woog. So the Grammys just released their list of nominees, and like every year, they have some very predictable picks on all of the major categories. And whether you're talking performance of the year, album of the year, song of the year, best new artist, those are the four major categories. There are very few surprises. It's 60-70% the biggest names who dropped an album, some of which I felt was deserving, some of it not as deserving. I do think that Ariana Grande deserved her nominations, although I don't think Seven Rings was one of the best songs on that album. I get that it was one of the singles she released, but there were several songs on Thank You Next better than Seven Rings. Billie Eilish has both become the biggest new artist aside from maybe Lizzo, maybe Lil Nas X, but Billie Eilish has also become one of the biggest pop sensations with that album, Where Do We Go When We Go to Sleep, or something like that. That album was a huge smash. It was produced by her brother, Phineas, who's also up for Producer of the Year, non-classical. But Billie Eilish is up for Best New Artist, either Record of the Year or Song of the Year, or both, with Bad Guy, and Album of the Year, Where Do We Go When We Go to Sleep. So Billie Eilish is really the talk of the town, along with Lizzo. If you didn't have a chance to see the video I released on Lizzo before the BET Awards, I was saying that this performance on the BET Awards was going to introduce Lizzo to a totally demographic, because she was one of the rare cases where you have a black artist that breaks big with the white audience before she then broke big with the black audience. She basically broke big with the indies and was performing at festivals and at the more hipster places to perform. Like when she would come to LA, she would hit the Echoplex and places like that. And then through the BET Awards, she was able to make a splash with a new demographic. So Lizzo also is up for Album of the Year and is up for Record of the Year, Song of the Year, with Truth Hurts, as well as Best New Artist. So Lizzo and Billie Eilish are both new artists who are hitting in just about all of the major categories. If you look back through the history of the Grammys, that's a very rare feat. But wait, we have a third artist who did the same, Lil Nas X, Album of the Year, with his EP titled 7 and Best New Artist. So that's 3 best new artists that are hitting in all of the major categories. Which, by the way, I thought with Lil Nas X's Album 7 or EP 7 being nominated for Album of the Year was kind of ridiculous, being that that's the only nearly rap album that's in the Album of the Year category. And he's also up for one of the rap performances of the year with Panini, which was the follow-up to Old Town Road, which broke all kinds of records. That is by far the biggest commercial smash, the biggest chart performer of all time for a song. It had the longest reign at number 1, Old Town Road, go figure, along with the Old Town Road remix with Billy Ray Cyrus and further remixes of Old Town Road, kind of superficially, but technically extending its shelf life at number 1. So yeah, Lil Nas X's Old Town Road is one of those songs that go down in the history books and is a record breaker, record setter. Her was also up for Album of the Year with a compilation style album. She still hasn't technically released an official album. She's got like collections of songs that she releases but doesn't consider it a studio album, yet it's getting album treatment. And in the days of streaming, what's really the difference between an album and a collection of songs? Because we're now living in a playlist era. And her, who is not only up for Album of the Year with I Used to Know Her, is also up for either Record of the Year or Song of the Year, as well as being nominated for Best New Artist last year. So we almost had 4 new artists who are hitting in the major categories. Pretty unprecedented. It's totally a changing of the guard and favorable treatment to the new school. One surprise I saw was that Bon Iver's I album was nominated for Album of the Year. Didn't expect that. I don't think it was Bon Iver's best album. It did get pretty good critical praise, but I didn't think it was one of his best. And also, Father of the Bride Vampire Weekend's fourth album, and in my opinion, their worst album to date. I thought that Contra, their second album, was better. I thought that their self-titled debut, Vampire Weekend, was better. I thought that Modern Vampires in the City, their third album, was better. But Father of the Bride is where we find them being nominated for Album of the Year. So I'm glad to see them nominated for Album of the Year, but I don't agree that this should have been the album that did it. But that just goes to show that normally the Grammys go by name and not by performance, not by what's actually of higher quality. It's more so who are the faces and names in the game that we all pretty much recognize. Like this is a popularity contest as much as anything. Even if you look at who is actually nominating these entries and who is voting on the winners, it's the Recording Academy, which is a collection of songwriters, producers, engineers, and so forth. So we'll go through these categories, category by category. We'll also discuss a lot of the snubs because there were many. I thought that Charlie XCX should have been one of the pop albums of the year. I was wanting and hoping to see Freddie Gibbs nominated for Rap Album of the Year along with Rhapsody. Freddie Gibbs's was the collaboration between him and producer Madlib from Oxnard, California. Big time underground, one of the fan favorites, a very legacy-based producer, kind of a producer's producer. You know, he gets all the respect, all the props. Madlib, very underground throughout his career. Hasn't had a ton of mainstream success, but Freddie Gibbs released a collab album with Madlib called Bandana. It was the second between those two collabing. Madlib's worked on a bunch of other stuff. Freddie Gibbs has worked on a bunch of other albums, but this was their second collab between the two. The first one was Pinata, was super critically acclaimed. This was the second, also super critically acclaimed, Bandana, and I was hoping to see that among the nominees here. I did not. I also didn't see Rhapsody's new album nominated for Best Rap Album, although her last album, her prior album, Layla's Wisdom, was nominated for Best Rap Album. But yeah, there are obviously a ton of other snubs. I mean, you only get X amount of nominees per category, so there's going to be a lot left off that, you know, you would have liked to see on there, but we're going to get through that video by video, category by category. And yeah, stay tuned. But those are some of my initial thoughts just looking at the list. Not super impressed, not super excited, but there's a lot of history to the Grammys, and there's a lot of the whys in terms of why you see certain albums nominated. And there's also a higher likelihood for certain albums that are nominated to win than other albums. So we'll go through it all. Let me know what you think upon your first glance at this list of nominees. Can't wait to get into it. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in.